My name's Hannah. I have been reading tarot for over 5 years now, but there are fundamentals that allow anyone to begin reading tarot right away. Although tarot reading gets better with study and practice, there are certain rules that you can learn in a short amount of time that will give you an overview of all 78 cards. People get stuck in the study of tarot and they get worried about the specific meanings, but it's easier than you think, especially when you apply these rules. So in this video, I'm going to talk about these rules. I'm going to talk about the rules behind the 4 suits. I'm going to talk about the rules of the numbers, and I'm going to talk about how you can read any major Arcana card just by focusing on the pictures and the symbols. So let's get into it. So let's start with the minor cards. They can be tricky to read because there's so many of them. We'll talk about it when we come into numbers, but if you can see it like a journey from 1 to 10, a journey in anything, it's like a cycle, right? So even from beginning to end. When you look at tarot like this, it makes more sense, right? We'll get into that when we talk about the numbers. But for now, I'm going to talk about the suits and their meanings. So Pentacles equals Earth. This makes it so much easier when you start to learn this. So Earth is the material realm, right? Anything you can touch, anything you can see, it's going to pertain to work, finance, money, home, health, house, things like this. So when these cards come up, this is what they're going to be bringing into consideration. It's a woman, she's holding her 2 pentacles. One has a sad face, one has a happy face. So when you look at this card, you're going to kind of think, all right, life's going to go up and down, and you have to be able to ride those ups and downs, right? So again, material world, life is going to go up and down, and you have to be able to sway. That's like something in the material world you have to learn to do. The 9 of Pentacles, when you look at this card, you know, birds always symbolize like affluence, abundance. So 9 of Earths is going to look at celebrating your achievements, yeah? Celebrating your independence, what you've been able to create, right? In the material realm. So Earth is feminine, masculine. Then we have swords. So swords is air. It pertains to the mind. That's really what air is. It's quick, it can be tactless, it's swift, action, communication, and it's masculine. So uber logical and rational. But it can also get stuck in its head, right? Like we can all get stuck in the mind. I think swords are a really good reminder. To me, they feel like the heavier cards in terms of their meaning, because I think it's a reminder that a lot of what we suffer from starts in the mind. And then we either create it on the reality plane, or we're in the mind and we're not in the reality plane, you know? So I'm not good enough, nobody likes me, whatever, our stresses and anxieties. The swords deal with a lot of these sort of things. So for instance, 6 of Swords, for instance, she's coming out of the woods, right? And she's got a little fire, a little flame. And so 6 of Swords really kind of means like you're emerging from a dark space that you've been in, but you've learnt from that darkness and you're bringing it forward, right? So you might have been in a dark place and now you're coming out of that and you're bringing that knowledge with you, right? Then you've got 9 of Swords, and you can see, you know, this is someone that's like stuck in a bit of a nightmare. Their anxieties, their stress, their worries have really eaten them up, but you can see she's almost in like a brick house, and like the cosmos, the stars are behind her, right? But she can't see that, right? That's a lot of the sword cards. It's like you're in your mind and you're not focused outside, yeah? So swords, air, masculine, and always talking about thoughts, communication, action. Then you have fire. Then you have wands, which is fire. I tend to read using elements. I think that's easier. But wands is fire. Masculine, feminine. So fire, wands is always going to pertain to power, inspiration, manifestation, sexuality. You know, it's fire, right? That's the thing. It's like if you think of these elements, you think of earth. It's earthy, practical. It's grounded. You think of the earth signs, Capricorn, Taurus, Virgo. Like, what are they known for? Maybe perfectionism, hardworking, grounded, practical. You know, all this comes into tarot. That's why you get better with study and practice, because you start to learn, right? Air, Libra, Gemini, Aquarius, they're always they're thinkers, they're talking, they're chatty, they can be quite revolutionary. They're focused on equality, you know, these sort of attributes. So fire sign, Sagittarius, I always get confused, Sagittarius, Leo, and what's the other one? Sagittarius, Leo, it'll come to me. Fire, confident. And then it's going to look at things like what's getting in your way of that, or, you know, what sort of energy you need to bring. For instance, Prince of Wands, right? This card, it's like, it's such a statement, right? He's action. He's arrogant. He knows what he wants and he's going after it, you know? That's this card. He can also be a bit abrasive, right? A quick note, I don't read reverse tarot cards because every card has a shadow side. Just like that, the Prince of Wands can be assertive and go for what he wants, which is like the light, and he can also be abrasive and brash, and that's the shadow. Every card has a light and a shadow. I don't read reverses. Then you've got Six of Wands, for instance, right? And it's like, this means victory. It means hard gain wins, right? And you can see in the card, it's like she's finally pulling the wands aside to look at the mountain, right? So it's like power, you know, inspiration, manifestation. You've been working hard and now you're seeing the rewards of that. Lastly, we have Cups, which is water, right? So these all make sense. Water is going to pertain to deep feeling, relationships, intuition, creativity. You know, it's water, it's feminine, right? It's water, it's ever-changing, it's overflowing, it's deep. So anytime that comes up, that's what water's going to be looking at. So for instance, Five of Cups, right? This person is clearly having a hard time. Yeah, they're not looking at the camera. The water is stagnant. It's not moving. The cups are empty. You know, this is going to imply like some sort of heavy loss. You're standing still in something. You're going through a heavy time, you know, and you can't seem to move through it. Whereas Ten of Cups, all the flowers are filled with all the cups are filled with flowers, right? They're looking into each other's eyes. This is going to signify like deep fulfillment on a level of love within yourself or with a partner. Creativity, intuitive, you know? So that's what cups are always going to bring up when they come up, right? So it's like a really easy way to be like, when you get your minor Arcana cards that come up, you can already tell, okay, this is Pentacles, this is Earth, so this is what it's looking at. Okay, this is Swords, this is Air, so this is what this is looking at. Yeah, so you bring it into a funnel. My second rule is the rule of the numbers. So another way also to help you read the minor arcana, and it can also be used for the major arcana. You look at the numbers, right? So they always kind of mean similar things within their own suit. So 1, new beginnings, right? Really easy. This makes sense. 1, new beginnings. 2, duality, choices, and self-reflection. 3 is momentum, forming patterns, collaboration. You look at it like a tripod, right? 3 is when 2 join up with something else and then you build a tripod, right? So it's momentum, it's collaboration, you know, you're moving, you're forming patterns. 4, stability and security, which makes sense, right? 4, it's a secure number, it's an even number, you know, these make sense. 5, breaking of stability and new elements. 5s are always tricky cards, yeah, because that's kind of what they mean. It's like introducing new elements and it's breaking of stability, you know. The 5s usually deal with like competition, regret, loss, jealousy, you know, it's breaking of that security, right? And you see it like this coming in order. Then you have 6, which is recalibration. 6 is the pregnant woman, right? So it's always kind of talking about abundance or hard gain victories or coming out of the dark woods, right? This is what 6 is. 7 is manifestation and progress. And you can see this in the major arcana cards, right? 7 is the chariot. Chariot, literally, her definition is going against the wind. You keep going, yeah? You take the path less chosen and you keep going. And that's what 7 means. It's manifestation, it's progress. All the 7s across the minor Arcana cards are dealing with feeling tired, feeling burnt out, but keep going. You have to stop and smell the flowers, look at what you've achieved, you know, that's 7. 8 is cycles and nature. 9 is contradictions and near completion. And if you think about it, it makes sense because near completion, it's always contradictions because near completion is usually when it gets the hardest, right? You know? And then 10, completion and endings, right? And we start again. We just start again. So they're the numbers, right? So you're learning 4 suits and 10 numbers instead of, 40 odd cards, right? It's like making it much easier. And then if you look at the face cards, so the princes, the princesses, the queens and the kings, they also have similar meanings. The pages or the princesses, they're youthful energy, right? So they can symbolize someone in your life, youthful, young. And the action is within. They're learning, but they're learning kind of within themselves, right? If you think of a teenager, they're learning, but they're learning within themselves. Okay, we're figuring things out. The princes or the knights, they're also action, but outside of themselves, doing, still youthful energy, right? Queen it's always like nurture, caregiving, it's feminine power. It's the mother of the suit, right? So it usually indicates that you have been able to hone the gifts of that suit, right? That's like feminine power. And king is the same. It's protection and it's masculine power. So these is kind of across the cards, right? So it makes it way easier. And then the numbers can help semi in the major arcana sometimes, right? So 1, for instance, in the major arcana is the magician, like new beginnings, and it's also the ability to manifest your desires, which kind of fits in with new beginnings, because when someone's young and they believe in it all, they're ready to chase their dreams and they're ambitious, this kind of fits in with that sort of energy, right? 2 is high priestess, and she's starting to look at the duality of it, right? She's got her hand in the spiritual world and another hand in the earthly world, right? She can hold dark and light, duality, right? Self-reflection. She's looking at her subconscious, her dream world. 3, the Empress. It's momentum, right? It's forming patterns. It's collaboration, right? It's the Empress. She is creation, fertility, rebirth. 4, the Emperor. Protection, security, consolidation. So you can see that these numbers do, as I said, 7, chariot, progression, keep going. They do peak themselves up in the major arcana cards. Don't forget to always be looking at the pictures, encoded in the art of tarot are a lot of the messages. And as we move on to the major arcana cards, I'm going to really push you towards intuition, because they all have their meanings. But sometimes when I read, I get a really clear message that doesn't necessarily match the card, but it's what the card means for this person. The other day I pulled for someone and I pulled 2 of Pentacles, which I know really means highs and lows, flowing with it, trying to, you're able to move. But for this, it was so clear. It was like, don't seek perfection. It still has the meaning there. It's like, don't look for perfection. Let things be as they are. They're still there, but that was the really clear message I got. Everyone's intuitive. The people that are running a business of it and reading tarot and are intuitive, they've just honed their intuition skills, right? Which means they've practiced listening to them. Yeah? So everyone's intuitive. Everyone has that ability. You just have to be able to shut out the noise and listen to that voice inside you. And the more you do it, the easier it is to listen to, right? So don't neglect your intuition and don't think that intuition doesn't matter. I have studied for a good 5 years. I've read under tarot readers that have read for a very long time. I've practiced a lot with other tarot readers, because that's the way I am. I like to be good at what I'm doing. But everyone will say, don't disregard your intuition. And as I've started to bring my intuition into my reads have gotten better and better and better, because everyone has energy and you can read that. And that's what the cards are reading, and you work together with that. So, how to read the major arcana cards? By reading the symbols and the pictures. Okay, so I'm going to use a couple examples. I'm not going to go through all of them because there's 22 major arcana cards, but I'm going to look at a few to just give you an example, right? So let's look at the Fool. I'm going to point out how you can look at certain things in the picture and understand it. So to quickly note, everyone uses a different deck, but I've got 5 decks and they all kind of follow similar symbols. I always use, this is my most favorite deck. If anyone knows about this deck, please let me know. I got given it as a gift. It was my first deck that was given to me, which is a bit of a tarot myth that the first gift you have should be gifted to you, but I can't find it. I don't know where it is. Anyway, it's the one I can just read the best. It knows me, I know it. You will find a deck that you can really read easily. But I'm just going to be using this deck just to show you, and then you can look at your deck and see pictures. So the Fool. So first of all, we look at the number, right? 0. Okay, so it's going to mean nothing and everything, something new, something not here yet, something not written on, something blank, a blank space, right? Then what else are you going to look at? You're going to look at the animals. So there's wolves, and wolves indicate a playful kind of energy. I have a book of symbols that I use a lot in my beginning study that allowed me to look at like what butterflies mean and wolves mean and otters are. But you can just look at that on Google. Everything will have a different, sometimes you'll get different sources, but you'll feel like, oh, this is the one that feels right to me. So wolves, yeah, they indicate playfulness, adventure, going into unknown territory. You'll also notice that the person in the card is not wearing any clothes, which always symbolizes an innocence. You'll notice that they have one small bag and that's it. So this also kind of indicates, okay, they don't have much. So they're starting out and they're not concerned with things. They're just setting out on their adventure and looking off. So where the characters in the cards look at, that also tells you a lot. If they're looking face on, then that's going to kind of indicate maturity, confidence, a good understanding of themselves. If their back is turned, so you can't see anything, you can just see their back, that's going to symbolize confusion, anxiety, stress, And if they're looking off to the side, they're either, when you start to do spreads, they're looking at other cards. There's all these sort of things as well to start learning when you read. Who are they looking at? Who's their back to? But in this case, they're kind of looking up at the sky. So this is kind of an idea that they're not focused, like they don't know who they are, but they're starting on their adventure. So that's just looking at the Fool. That's just looking at the symbols in the card, right? And you look at the wolf and you say, okay, playfulness, going into unknown territories. They don't have any clothes on, so this indicates innocence. So that's going to indicate someone young maybe, or the beginning of something. So just looking at the symbols and the pictures can give you a little idea of the card, right? So if that came out to someone who didn't read tarot, they could be like, oh, the Fool. So I'm guessing something's beginning here. Something's beginning here and there's a blank slate and you're starting again, or you're starting something new, and there, it's just, you've read the card, right? Obviously, as you get more complicated and you get into spreads and people have specific questions, then you start to read tarot as a story and that reveals more. But you don't have to worry about that now at the beginning. So another card, another example, transition, right? Death. Transition and death. It depends what people have in their card. So first of all, it's number 13. So 13 has a very symbolic meaning, right? Friday the 13th, it always means those scary movies. Anyway, so there's that, right? Death. But then look at the card, right? So there's a skeleton aspect, right? She is a skeleton and there's skeletons all around her. So straight away you're like, okay, something's dead. Something's going back into the ground. It's the end of something. But then you see there's all butterflies. And there's butterflies in her hand, and there's butterflies on her head, and there's butterflies on the skull head. So butterflies always symbolize transformation. And that's just like the whole idea. They're in a cocoon, and then they open their wings and they fly, and they transform into something completely different, So straight away you see that, right? You see that. And that's just like looking at the cards. You're like, okay, so something's dying, but it seems like there's some sort of transformation. Something's being reborn. And there is the death card that's been read. Another example, the Hermit. Yes, card. So there's a few symbols here, right? So the woman is shutting her eyes, which implies that she's not looking around. She's going into herself. She's going to do some deep work inside. It's not a card of action and momentum. It's a card of internal reflection. The background, right? So it's like the icy mountains and like the very sharp, jagged, in-hospital background. That will also indicate a heavy time coming through a heavy time, or coming through a hard time, working really hard, or going through a tricky phase, you know what I mean, and taking rest. That's what that background will. The eagles always kind of indicate, symbolize perspective, right? An understanding of seeing the greater picture. So it's like, it's kind of indicating that, hey, by going in, you gain a greater perspective of the whole picture, right? And that's really what the Hermit is. That's exactly what the Hermit means. And then she's holding kind of like the world in her hands, right? Which is kind of like, hey, by going in, like you are the world, if you can go in and self-reflect on everything that's happened, it'll give you a greater perspective, right? And that's what the Hermit is. I'll give you 2 more examples. So we have the High Priestess, number 2. So like I said, duality, choices, self-reflection. So this card, she's purple. She's a purple crystal. Purple kind of symbolizes intuition. And that's what the High Priestess all is. She's purple. So straight away, it's like, purple, that indicates intuition. So this is an intuition card, right? She holds light and dark in her hands, duality. She can hold it all, right? The High Priestess. She is, even all the dark crystals at the earth, it's like going into the deep center of the earth, which is kind of like symbolizing going into your deep subconscious. You know, your subconscious is almost like the center of the earth. Like, what lies there? What secrets are there? What information's there? What's your dreams telling you, right? That's very much what this card is. And obviously she has the moon above her head. There's crows as well, actually. I think crows indicate intelligence, because crows are very intelligent birds. So there's an intelligence that she's gaining from going inside. And the moon is always, the moon is a symbol of its femininity, its cycles, it's earthy, you know, it's primordial, you know, it's understanding this feminine side, right? So there's the High Priestess, and it's a highly intuitive card. That's what it's saying. Tap into your intuition. The last one we've got is the moon. And the moon, it's really interesting. So the first thing you see is there's a moon on the top right. It's going through its cycles from the full moon to the new moon. So automatically you're thinking, okay, so the moon is full and then it goes through its cycle and it disappears when it's the new moon, right? It disappears. So that indicates like cycles, but also illusions, you know, because the moon is there, but you can't see it. You know, that's what the moon card's about. Like it can be illusions. What are you not seeing? Yeah. The ocean and the shells and the fish and the crabs, that's always going to symbolize primordial knowledge, right? The waters of the womb of the earth, right? Primordial. The ocean was the first thing here, and those creatures have been here forever. Yeah, that's what that's going to indicate. So it's indicating when this comes up that there's like primordial information within yourself, you know, within your waters, within your body, you know, and to focus on that. And then also you notice that there's like 2 little pillars on the side. So that's gates, right? So that can indicate going through something. You're moving through something, right? You're going through a portal. And that's very much the moon, right? So I can't go through all the major Arcana cards because we'll be here for 3 hours. But I wanted to give you an overview that allows you to begin learning all 78 tarot cards. And you can start reading straight away, right? So I'd love to know if you enjoyed this video. If you liked it, give it a like, subscribe, and I will see you next time.